say, you know, we've come this far, my friend. So y'all know the songs. Leaning on, say, leaning on the Lord. And you know we're trusting in His holy word. Oh, He never failed me yet.
I think there needs to be an awareness, especially for generations that don't have any connection to that history, to understand how things became what they are, what's the legacy that makes a church what it is, and what's that link to the community. And so I thought it was very important for us to not only know our history, but be able to document it to whatever extent possible. Unfortunately, when I came, there wasn't very much documentation in place, and so that became a real source of I won't say frustration, but it just kind of encouraged me in terms of the need to try to make as many inroads as we could, because for a church as old as we are, there aren't a whole lot of people who, go back to the beginnings of the church. And so you got to go back as far as you can to document as much as you can.
The slide on the screen is something that the city of Sarasota, or the county of Sarasota, had never seen before: a Black place of worship. This was the first Baptist church in Sarasota and the second church in Sarasota. There was one other church before this one by about 6 years, and then this church was built for African Americans. As you can see, there's a crowd there. There was always a crowd there because this was the only place of its size where African Americans could gather. A neighborhood was built around this church that was called Black Bottom to begin with, and then someone named us Overtown. So Overtown stuck, but 3 denominations were worshiping in this church. Of course, the Baptist, which is Bethlehem Baptist Church, the Holiness, and the Methodists. And they moved out eventually to start their own church, but this is the first African-American place of worship in Sarasota. The second is what people are still talking about today, how the church was enlarged. The way they enlarged the church was they built a shell twice as long as the original church, twice as wide as the original church. And at the same time the shell was being built, they continued to have service on the inside. When the church was 90% complete, the shell was 90% complete, they tore down the inside and kept right on having service because they had no place else to have service. The third slide is a picture of that church after they had torn the original church out and moved it out of the shell, had completed the shell on the inside. And the reason that there's construction still in front of the church, they're trying to build or finish the steps that lead into the church. The next slide depicts what some people are still calling a miracle. This is years later when they had run out of room again because of how fast Overtown was growing and the Black community was growing. They jacked or elevated the church and built a basement. And you know what they say about building a basement in Florida with its water level. But they hired an engineer from New York subway system to come to Florida, show them how to elevate that church, build a basement, and the basement was used mainly for Sunday school and other activities that the church had no room for. I put this slide in because it will give you an idea of what the church looked like on the inside. And as you note, all the men have on shirts and ties, and all the women have on hats. And if you didn't wear a hat or a suit, you weren't going to church. Also note that the windows are open because I don't think they had air conditioning back in that time. And so if you wanted to get some air in, you had to open those windows. The slide with the gentleman in the street. This is a picture of the church basement being completed and the church elevated to its new height. As you see, they have had to add new steps so that the people could get that 6 feet from the ground where it used to be and get in the church. And as you can see next door, you can see the side of the parsonage. And they were very, very proud of the way this whole thing turned out because it was very beneficial in getting them a whole lot more space. This is kind of a sad picture in that this is a church after it closed down. The congregation had weeks earlier moved to their new location on 18th Street in what was called Newtown. And this church sat for 2 years before they started the demolition. This picture depicts the demolition, the beginning of the demolition for the old church. And it looks similar to a slide that you see earlier where they were building and around the initial church, and this is when they were tearing down the old Bethlehem Baptist Church in Overtown. This picture depicts that the building is coming down and they have reached the level of where they had put the basement. And of course, the congregation had long now, for 2 years, been up at their new church in Newtown. This is the new church, the new Bethlehem. It was opened in 1973. Now, the old Bethlehem was still standing and stood for 2 years before it was demolished. But the people of Bethlehem had moved on to Overtown, and this church had a lot of things that the old church didn't have as far as niceties and roads and various other things. And the people loved this church. And but the congregations of the Holiness had moved out, started their own church, and the Methodists had moved out and started their own church. So it was kind of pure Baptist at that time. This is the first remodeling of the new church that was in Newtown. And they added, the biggest thing they added was the conference room, the pastor's office, new and larger and more modern bathrooms, a new entrance, and many other niceties that they didn't have in the older church. This is the present structure that you're sitting in right now. This is the present church, even with our new paint job from yellow to our new white. The picture on the screen depicts an advertisement for a program that's being held at Bethlehem in Overtown, our original church, okay? As you see from the date, this happened in October 5th, 1925. And we were trying to decide who we were, whether we were black, colored, or Negro. And as you see in the slide, we depicted ourselves as a colored Baptist church. And there was not a lot to do back in that day, but church services were one of the main things. And singing was loved not only by us, but as our white friends who we invited, and many of them came to the programs that we had in the old Bethlehem Baptist Church. This slide focuses on the top left, one of the documents going all the way back into the beginnings of the church. Our pastor, Lewis Colson, this document refers to him. And as you see, we were referred to as the Negro Missionary Baptist Church of the USA. This document is where we had paid off a loan, and the reason it's up there is we were referred to as the former Colored Missionary Baptist Church. And one of the things, or good things about that, we had a reputation for paying our bills. We borrowed money, we were paying it off on time or ahead of time. This one is where we borrowed the money, and we borrowed $3,500. And whether it was for an expansion or whatever, I don't exactly know what this money was used for, but what can you buy today for $3,500? And again, we're referred to as formerly the Colored Church, Bethlehem Baptist Church. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember this book. It's called the Green Book. And as it depicts on the screen, it's for the colored or Negro or black people that were traveling around the country. It told you where you could stay and where you better not stop, okay? And if you wanted to eat or go to the bathroom or wanted to just stop and relax, there were certain places you could do that throughout the South and certain places you couldn't. I personally am a person that has used the Green Book many times, especially when I was in college and we were traveling with the baseball team. Here's one of our favorite famous people, as I like to say, Mary McLeod Bethune. She came to see us several times. I have a picture of her when we were in Overtown, standing in the lobby. There were people, women at our church that she was friends with. And she would come over and make speeches to our kids and to our ladies. And she was very loved and respected in our church. This is our former governor and senator, Bob Graham, and he's with Reverend Daly, one of our former pastors. And for some reason, he'd like to come and visit us. And I really don't know what they're working on, but he was always a man that had to give you good counsel and support. Now, this is one of the favorite pictures of our kids. As you see on the screen, two of our heroes. Don King, the boxing promoter, probably one of the most famous boxing promoters in the world, and Al Sharpston, the Reverend Al Sharpston. They were in town for the Howard Luncheon, and they gave our kids an opportunity to sit down and talk and take pictures with them And our kids went goo-goo over this. They loved Don King without question because of his fancy outfits and the way he talks and his style. And they loved Al Sharpton too, but he was a little less talkative, but giving a lot of advice and encouragement to our children and our youth. Mr. Morgan and Morgan, the largest law firm in the world, I hear. And he's been here several times politicking. And Mr. Morgan is also considering, I hear, a third party because he's ready to jump back into politics again. Very nice man. Charlie Chris, he was here, and as you see, he's walking down the aisle here in the church, and the people are just jumping up and shouting and giving him encouragement, and he went right down the aisle and hugging and kissing and going on, and they loved him. He was here more than once or twice. We have several pictures when he came to see us, and he was politic. He didn't win, but he won the hearts of our people. This picture is of Andrew Gillum, who at one point almost upset our present governor in the first election that they had against each other. He lost by a very small margin. And he was the mayor of Tallahassee, the first person of color that was the mayor of Tallahassee. And he was a friend of our pastor. That's our pastor, Reverend Miller, standing next to him. They like to brag about the fact that they went to Florida A&M University. And they are extremely proud of that. And we're proud of Florida A&M University too. And we're also proud of both of these gentlemen that are on the screen.
Never could have made it without you. I would have lost it all. But now I see how you were there for me.
The picture on the screen is supposed to be a picture of our founder, Lewis Colson, and his wife, Irene, okay? You will find this picture on buildings downtown depicting the founder of Bethlehem Baptist Church and the Black community at that time. The church is, of course, proud of the fact that the Colsons were getting this kind of recognition. Our only concern is, are these the real Colsons? The reason that we have our concerns is history says, and with our people being able to go back in history and track the families all the way back to slavery time and beyond slavery and back to Africa, we have not been able to find the connection between this picture and the fact that history says that both of the Colsons were mulattoes. We have tracked their family, and all of the people that we have found in their family that is direct descendants of the Colsons are light-skinned people. We don't know where to go from here as far as being able to say for sure that this is the Colsons. We would like to be able to say whatever picture we find that we can support with facts that this is a picture of our founder, the Colsons. Mrs. Colson was supposed to be, according to her family, the ones that knew her, okay? She has grandchildren that remember Grandma, okay? And they said she was short and stout, and she would only wear her hair one way. That was in a big plait down her back. By the way, she was a lady that helped deliver half of the Black people in Newtown at that time. She was a midwife. Mr. Colson was a big, tall according to the records, handsome, strong man. In fact, he was the man that they said that drove the stake that downtown at 5 Points that laid out the city of Sarasota. M.E. Booker, an outstanding lady. She's a lady on the left. She's an educator, and her name is on all 3 of the schools in the African American community here in Sarasota. The elementary school is Elementary Booker, the middle school is Booker, and the high school is Booker High. And she came here when the education for Black Americans only went to the 4th grade. And she was driving here initially from St. Petersburg. She taught and then eventually became the principal of the school. And they didn't have a black school back then. They were renting space for black students so they could learn. She worked hard. She continued to go to school. She got her degree, and unfortunately, it was just 2 years before she passed in 1939. James Brown. James Brown, a friend of mine, served on the board of trustees and served on the board of many things at Bethlehem Baptist Church. He was an educator at many levels. He was an educator in high school, and he was an educator at the college level, and he was also an historian. And he also held many other positions in the black community throughout Sarasota. Carolyn Mason, a young lady that was born and raised in the Bethlehem Baptist Church, worked hard, studied hard, and rose to the rank of the first African-American county commissioner. And we're proud of all the things and accomplishments she was able to do here in this city. Gregory Jackson, born and raised in this church, worked for the post office and was exceptional in the job that he did, but he just couldn't get promoted to some of the positions that he thought that he had earned. So he went south to Port Richey, and there they made him the head of the department. And Sarasota learned of his success down there and offered him an opportunity to come home. So he came here as the postmaster general and worked in the post office for over 40 years. And he's a brother of Miss Eileen West. And she's very proud of that because she talks about him all the time. Miss Dorothy Smith, one of the most outstanding women that I have ever met in my lifetime. She could do everything. When you get a chance to see her resume, you will understand why I am so high on her. She came to this town when she was 20 years old to teach. She became principal. She became teacher of the year. She got every award a woman or man could possibly get from every organization in this town. And she earned it, and she got me started. She was an historian. I'm a gatherer. She was an historian. I used to go over and sit on her floor, and she would teach me how to get information, what information was important, and how I should put it back together. I owe everything that I am to Miss Smith. Aaron Walton. Aaron Walton is a person that I take my hat off to. And one of the reasons I take my hat off to, I retired from a corporation that I worked for 35 years and came to Florida to play golf, and to fish. Aaron Walton retired from a Fortune 500 company also, and came to Florida to play golf. I don't know about fishing, but he came to play golf and to relax. He got a call from one of the boards that he worked on, a university board, Cheney University in Pennsylvania. This man gave up his retirement and went back to Cheney and became its president. To this day, he is still president of Cheney. Now, we haven't gotten the fact that he sits on the board of directors here at Bethlehem, and he comes here every possible time and owns a home here. And we love him and would look forward to the day that he would retire again and come back to us here at Bethlehem Baptist Church. He is sorely missed.
First Black to integrate elementary school, 1962 to 1963. Frankie Davis Dawkins began her education studies at an early age by attending Brody Nursery School for 3 years. Then she became among the students at Amaryllis Park Primary School and then attended Booker Elementary School. In September 1962, Mr. and Mrs. Frank Davis enrolled Frankie into an all-white school. Frankie was the first Black student into an all-white Bethlehem Elementary School.
This young lady is a young lady almost that I have admiration for as Miss Smith, because she did something that I think I could never do. She broke the color line in education here in the city of Sarasota. As you may or may not recall, Florida would not integrate when the rest of the nation integrated schools. And the reason that they said here in Sarasota is because the African Americans would hold the white back because they couldn't keep up. They were at least 2 years behind. And after the federal government cut the funding off and said either you integrate or you get no more money, they decided to integrate. And the way they did it here in Sarasota was to give us 2 students and we will send them over to Bethlehem, which was one of our better schools in Sarasota at that time, and we'll see how they do. Well, this young lady and another young lady, which I can't recall her name, was selected to go over and be the 2 students that would integrate Bethlehem. Well, there's a newspaper article that you will see in the lobby where it was in the paper the day before they were supposed to arrive. And of course, they gave everybody that didn't want them at Bethlehem a chance to be standing at Bethlehem at the entrance, waiting for them to show up. Well, the other young lady's parents said, we can't do this. And they told that young lady that you don't have to go. But Frankie Dawkins' mother said, you're going. You have to go by yourself. So that next day, Frankie entered Bethlehem. And Frankie was in class at the back of the room with 2 ladies standing on each side of her with a space between her and the last chair in the room by herself. And when class started, the first subject was English. And every time the teacher would ask a question, Frankie's hand would go up. And Frankie knew the answer. They switched to math. Every time the lady would ask a question, the hand went up. And Frankie would ask the question. Everybody in the class would turn around and be looking at Frankie. I met a man that owns a business here in Sarasota who was in that class. And he says, Henry, she was the smartest person that any of us in the class had ever seen. The next day, the other young lady got her courage up and she came to class. And she was smarter than Frankie. So the myth that the black kids could not keep up was dead forever. Well, with all the things we've talked about this morning, there's one thing that I should admit. Things weren't always rosy around Bethlehem Baptist Church. And what I'm about to show you now will give you an idea of what I'm talking about. After we had moved from Overtown to Newtown and had hired a new pastor here at Bethlehem, back in the 70s, the late 70s, things kind of got turned around. They started calling us the Bethlehem Baptists.
Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again, y'all. Look out. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Listen to me. I despise. 'Cause it means destruction of innocent lives.
The headlines will speak for themselves. The people took over the church. They slept in there overnight. They tried to change the locks so he couldn't get in. He called the police. The police came. The members said, look, we founded this church. We built this church. We hired him, and we can fire him.
Everybody thinks we're wrong. Mother, who are they to judge us? Mother, simply cause we wear our hair long. Mother, ooh.
The letter on the screen is the final letter that we wrote the pastor, Mr. Rupert Paul, after he had lost and Bethlehem as a church had won. This is kind of our eviction letter that, sir, you have to leave town, you have to get out of the parsonage, and this is the time that we want you out.